Our perception of a deacon is mostly what we see him doing during Mass, assisting at the altar, proclaiming the gospel, or delivering a homily. But the role of a deacon is not only what he does, but who he is. A husband, a father, a vital member of the workforce, as well as ordained clergy who serves the people of God in our communities. In this video, we'll hear from 3 men about their journey through diaconate formation and the impact it has had on their lives.
I work at the Archdiocese as the Director of Communications, and I've had several positions there in the past 5 years, mostly dealing with graphic design and website management, social media, whether it's national church news that we're trying to share with other people through some of the social media, or local news within the Archdiocese on our website, or appearing in print in the Witness. There's always something new, there's always something happening. I think I first started to realize that I was being called to the diaconate maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And at the time, I was too young to apply, and so there was no urgency at all. I was kind of in my late 20s. And so it was very much just this idea would pop into my head. I'd give it some thought. I'd never really talked to anyone about it. It was just very much, that's a possibility. I bet that's something I'll do when our kids are grown up, when I'm in my 50s, because that's what felt comfortable for me, putting it way off in the distance. And I never really even stopped to ask, is this kind of really from God, or is this just a thought that I'm having? There was no urgency to it, again, because I was in my late 20s and too young to apply. So that's really kind of what that was like for me. I think that those early years when the Holy Spirit was starting to work in my heart. And, about 2 years ago at work, Deacon Tom Lang asked me, John, have you ever thought about this? And I remember for an instant thinking, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say, no, I've never thought about it. But I said yes, knowing that that was kind of a big step for me, because it wasn't something I talked about much. And then he said some things, and he said, you should maybe explore this a little bit. And so I did, and I talked with Sadie about it. And Sadie was always just so focused on the family and what we needed as a family, and watching out for the kids, that she definitely was leery of the whole idea of us suddenly being in formation and what that might mean.
I had a 2-year-old and a soon-to-be a new baby, and I was very focused on them, and the thought overwhelmed me, and I didn't want to even consider the possibility of getting into such a big thing with such a big commitment. And then eventually I got to the point where I guess it was the Holy Spirit working in me too, because I just kind of came around to the idea and said, okay, we can start this process. I didn't think at the time that it was the Holy Spirit working in me, but now that I look back, I think, yeah, it must have been. I asked a lot of questions, and we went and visited the daycare, because that was my biggest concern, is where the kids would go. And so we get to see the other kids at the daycare and how it was, and how all those kids loved it, and it was really nice. And I thought, okay, I could see them staying here. I guess I can make this step. So it was kind of a step-by-step process of me getting more comfortable with the idea.
Everything kind of came together, and at a point when we could have really said, no, this is off in the distance, the Holy Spirit started to put people in my life and kind of affirm through others that the time was now.
I'm a district sales manager for Kent Feeds, and I cover Northeast Iowa, Southeast Minnesota, and Western Wisconsin. Work with about 50 different dealers, and make a lot of farm calls, do a lot of recommendations on feeding livestock, dairy rations, beef rations, that type of thing. When I first decided to become a deacon, I wasn't sure how that was going to fit together and how people would receive that. And people have been very receptive, and I've actually had several weddings with dealer people and their children that I've done for them, and different producers, livestock producers, have approached me knowing that I'm a deacon and have been much more open about maybe some personal issues that they have going on in their lives. So it does kind of meld into my work in that regard. As far as how my work melded into the diaconate, it's probably just more my personal skills and dealing with people and listening skills, and maybe some of my leadership or my presentation type skills. I was a little bit nervous what my family might think when we started the application process, and so it was kind of an interesting visit with them. You know, I talked to many of my siblings about it, and of course my mother, about the possibility, and felt a lot of strong support there. And I didn't know for sure how some of them might look at that, but there was nothing but support. And as we went through the application process, I started to get excited about learning more, because that's what Tom stressed to me. I hadn't 100% decided, yes, this is something I was being definitely called to do, or that I really wanted to do this for sure. And so, but Tom just said, well, come and see. He said, just fill out the application and come and see what it's like. And so that was kind of the attitude that I took into formation, was this come and see attitude, to learn more about it. And I found formation very enlightening, because I'd never had much training, formal training in school or college or anything in terms of church history and tradition and kind of the reasons we do a lot of the things that we do within our church liturgies and all of that. And so it was an opportunity for me to learn a lot.
I really wanted to support Nick, because I really did believe that he was being called. But I didn't realize that it would be so nourishing for me as well. I think we grew in our faith together. There were things that we talked about that it was much easier to talk about our faith with each other.
We started to get more conviction in terms of, you know, really what God was calling us to do over the course of the 4.5 years of formation. And I think we just continually grew together by going to classes together. And I think it would be very difficult to go through that type of a process alone, for starters, because I needed June's support and also her understanding. And just, I think it might be hard on couples if they don't have that opportunity to go together. It might be hard on your relationship, because one is going to grow faster in their faith than the other, and you may grow apart. The thing that's most memorable for me about ordination is laying face down on the floor while everyone in the church sang the Litany of the Saints in prayer for us as deacon candidates at that point, just waiting to be ordained. That was very, very moving, and I go back to that today every time I hear the Litany of the Saints being sung, and just the feeling of grace that came with that.
Ordination Day was really fabulous. I mean, to have, you know, family and good friends there to support you, and they have been praying us through formation and all of that, and to have them share in that was really, really neat. I was privileged enough to receive the precious blood from Nick that day, and that was very meaningful. It was very moving, and I thought to myself, now he is deacon for the people of God, and I mean, I have goosebumps just thinking about it now.
I was in education for 40 years as a teacher and a school administrator. I retired as a retired superintendent here from Owine, and for the last 3 years I've been a parish life coordinator for Sacred Heart in Owine and Immaculate Conception in Fairbank. The whole process is a formation, and through the process of formation, through those 4.5 years of formation, it became evident to me that in fact the Lord was calling me. How did I know? I think it was through a whole process of growth, and in who I am and in my spiritual life, and in the whole calling of from the Lord to this ministry as a deacon.
Well, when Jim came home and told me that he was thinking about the diaconate, it was no surprise to me. I knew that he was so faith-filled and you know, wanted to be of service to people, and he's just a very caring, giving person. And it was no surprise to me at all.
I felt that my faith was strong. I never doubted that at all when I was going in. What I didn't realize was how much I didn't know, and about myself, about my faith. And so through the whole process of formation, I grew. I grew in my relationship, as Cheryl and I said, our relationship with each other, which was remarkable. But we also grew in my relationship with Christ. I mean, that was so important. And in doing that, I learned about what the diaconate was really all about, and how I could, as a deacon, serve others, and really do God's work.
I was thrilled, first of all, to be able to share the class attendance with Jim and with our, our formation class. We became like a family. There were 15 of us, 15 men and wives, and first of all, the subject matter was so interesting. It was not only the academics, but it was spiritual too. And I know on our trips home, we had to commute back and forth, we would talk about the classes and how the classes had went, and how interesting they were, and just grew in our faith as well as our knowledge.
I think maybe some of the greatest growth has come even after my ordination, in that I've become to realize not only that it's something to do, but how important it is to have that prayer life, and to have that communication with the Lord, with the Holy Spirit, and so it's difficult to say other than to say that it has continued to grow, and it continues to grow. That it's no longer something I've got to do, it's something that I make time for and I want to do. It's important. I would definitely say pray about it. There's so much power in prayer and that relationship with God and with the Holy Spirit. Ask God to help you with that discernment. And then I would say pursue it. Talk to deacons. Go to the information meetings. Learn about it. Step in and find out. You're considering it, but what you want to know is God considering you? And that's what the formation process is all about, is you building that relationship with God and finding out whether, in fact, you're calling this, or whether God is actually calling you to it. And the process is so wonderful. We learn that. We develop that as we go through. So I guess what I would say is, develop that prayer life right away. Ask God to help you, and begin the journey.
John and Sadie Robbins are currently in the formation process as John continues to discern his call to the permanent diaconate. In addition to his full-time job as district sales manager for Kent Feeds, Deacon Nick Francis ministers to patients in the hospital and hospice during his weekly visits. Deacon Jim Patera is not only the parish life coordinator for Sacred Heart and Immaculate Conception parishes, but also serves on the Archdiocesan Marriage Task Force. Thank you for watching this video, and may God bless you as you discern whether you are being called to the permanent diaconate.